is first I'm doing for my buddy Andre, who just moved to South Carolina. I'm going to do a dipole antenna to put in his attic. So what we're using is 2 pieces of copper wire. I cut these long. Right now they're, I think, 9 feet long. What I'm going to do is solder them to the connectors, and then I'm going to trim them down. Probably cut them down to about 103 inches and check it. We'll set it up on a radio and see what the SWR is. So what I have is some connectors here for this coax to screw into. It's SO239. And I'm just going to solder that conductor onto the connection on it. And what I'm going to do is the other wire is going to go through one of the mounting holes on this, and I'll just bolt it on. Alright, so let's get to the soldering and see if I can hold all these pieces together and get the solder on there. Got to put some goop on there. Make the solder stick. Oh, you got lots of goop on there, enough for both pieces. So we'll put the goop back, and let's scrape a little bit of that goop off and put it on the connector itself. Alright, that's done. Now, let's see if I can manage to hold this in place, hold the wire, and hold the roll of solder, and the soldering gun. Let's cheat a little and stick that in there. Alright, I gotta get close because I'm old and my eyes don't work so well anymore. What I'm gonna do is try heating this up first. And I'll put some more solder on top. Alright, I'll bring this up close so you can see. I'm going to flip the switch, so I might shake it for a second so you can see up close. That's all there is to it. Just solder that wire right to the antenna connector. And then this one, we'll be ready to trim that one down to 103 inches. Many pieces of wire coming at me. Alright, so what I've done is I've put a piece of string up, tied off to my garage door, and running clear across the garage, tied off to that post over there. And I'm going to attach the antenna to this string so that we can use the string to mount the antenna. This way, the weight of the antenna is not on the antenna. The string will hold the weight of the antenna. Now I'm going to start talking funny because I'm going to have a bunch of zip ties hanging out of my mouth. Don't you just love zip ties? Putting a few pieces of tape on it. And then once the tape roll is out of my hand, then I'll wrap all these. But it's just easier to rip all the pieces off first and then wrap it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the center. That way I can get this nice and snug with the string. That half's done. Now we'll go wrap this one up. Let's get some of the bends out of this wire first. It's got the bends. It must have come up too fast. Alright, so the antenna is all secured to the string. I have the string tied off on both ends. It's all zip tied and taped in place. I have excess wire sticking out at the end so that I can do some trimming, because like I said, I've cut these wires to 103 inches long, and that's longer than they need to be. But it's a good starting point. It's better to have them a little long than too short. So now the antenna is connected together. Let me tell you a little bit about it. What I started out with is 12 gauge house wire. It's just 12-2 wire, and I use the copper ground wire that's inside of that. So it's two pieces of 12 gauge at 103 inches long. And what I did was I soldered on the driven element to the center conductor of my antenna wire connector, and the ground plane element, I soldered that to a little tab that has a washer that's part of it. It's an electrical connection, and then bolted it to the connector. After I finished that, I wrapped it with vinyl tape, and then I put on this stiff plastic tubing. The tubing is just so that if this gets moved around or banged around in the attic, it's not going to be wiggling at the solder joints. Instead, that plastic tubing will keep it rigid. So that's all I did for that, and it makes it plenty strong enough. I have my coax connected to it, and I figured the tractor was right here anyway, so the radio that's on my garden tractor, that's the radio I'm using. I removed the antenna that's for this radio and disconnected its coax and connected the jumper to my SWR meter and a short cable going to the antenna. Alright, so let's check the SWR and let's see what we have. I'll put you back down on the floor, hopefully not making you dizzy. Alright, so we have the radio on, and it's on channel 40 right now. So let's put this meter to forward, and we're at set. And it looks like we have about 1.8 to 1. Alright, let's go down to channel 1. Now this should be a lot lower because the antenna is too long. So let's set that meter, put that needle right on the set position, and then flip the meter down to reflected, which is our reading. Wow, look at that. Barely 1.1 to 1. So we have a reading of 1.1 to 1 on channel 1, and 1.8 to 1 on channel 40, which is perfect. That means that the antenna is too long. So what I'll do is, once it's mounted in place, we'll check it again, and then we'll climb up in the attic and trim off just 1/8 of an inch at a time until we get a really good reading out of it. With that readings I'm seeing on the meter, this antenna will most likely tune to about 1.2 to 1. Just because to get channel 40 lower is going to end up bringing channel 1 up a little bit. But that's alright. 1.2 to 1 is fantastic. And being that we use 12 gauge wire, once he gets the power supply for his amplifier, it shouldn't change much at all. Once he runs more power through it, it'll probably only increase to about 1.3 to 1. Alright, that's it. That's how to make a simple dipole antenna. Like I said, this is an indoor setup. That's why it's just attached to some nice strong string, and I'm not too concerned about the bare copper wire. It'll be inside. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.